Well, good morning and good afternoon, everyone, to this webinar session in how to be successful in Colombia. My name is Ajay Kusum, and I'm a consultant in SPI. And this webinar is a part of virtual training courses and one of the main tools for Cuban, which is a platform that is designed to help European SMEs with business and innovation in emerging markets. Cuban was set up by a consortium of experts in the fields of cultural differences with the involvement of SME support and innovation agencies. The project partners are Hofstede Insights from Finland and SPI from Portugal. Cuban is fully financed by the European Commission. Cuban stands for Cultural Understanding for Business Expansion and Innovation. The aim of this Cuban platform is to give you the tools to prepare yourself and your business in unfamiliar business environment. In essence, Cuban provides self-assessment tools to test your readiness, an online library to help you learn more about the cultures and innovation customs in your targeted country. It also gives the possibility to attend the webinar sessions with the help of the experts. And finally, it also provides you the option to ask questions to culture and innovation experts. For this webinar, our theme is focused on Colombia, and we have two intellectual heavyweights who will be providing deeper intricacies and understanding on the Colombian market. Our first speaker is Mr. Gonzalo Alvarez, who is the investment manager at ProColombia. So Gonzalo joined ProColombia in 2010 and has held strategic roles in the promotion of foreign direct investments in Colombia. He has also worked at IG Markets in London, UK, as an investment analyst officer. Our second speaker is Ms. Maria Alejandra HENRIQUEZ. She is the head of inbound investments and business development at ProBarranquilla. She has had 5 years of experience in promoting and attracting investments at ProBarranquilla, and she has also worked in the areas of marketing and communications at Clinical Excellence Commission of the state of New South Wales in Australia, and also in Barranquilla. So without further much ado, I would like to give the floor to Mr. Gonzalo Alvarez. At the meantime, I'd also encourage all the participants to ask questions, which we will be soon discussing at the end of the presentations from both the speakers. So now I'll give the presentation to Mr. Gonzalo.
Thank you very much for this kind invitation to QVIN today. Just give me a second, I'm gonna just display my presentation. Please let me double check with me if everybody see my presentation right now.
Yes, we can hear you well. We can see and hear you well.
Perfect. Well, thank you very much again for this invitation, and good morning and good afternoon, everyone that has been joined this webinar today. Again, my name is Gonzalo Vargas. I'm the investment manager for European companies at ProColombia. What is ProColombia? ProColombia is the government entity in charge of promoting export, non-traditional exports, so exports that they are not related with mine or exploration of oil and gas in Colombia. Also, we promote the international tourism in our country. We promote our country brand, that is the CEO. And myself and all my team, we promote the international or the investment attraction, foreign investment attraction into the country. We got presence in more than 32 countries. Probably in case of Portugal, the closest office that we have is Spain, but we got presence in more than 32 countries right now. And let's start talking about Colombia. Why Colombia is the best place that you have to bear in mind at the moment to take the decision to come to Latin America and use it as a platform of operations, in this region. And the first thing that I have to tell you is Colombia is a resilient country. Colombia has been experiencing in the past 40 years a different situation in our country, and every difficult situation that we have been experiencing, fortunately, we have been surpassed this kind of situation. And in terms of macroeconomics, I have to tell you that Colombia in the past 22 years always has been growing above the average of the Latin American countries. Just in the case of 2019, we were at the third best performance in the GDP growth with 3.3% growth of the GDP. And in 2020, it's not going to be the exception. Colombia, despite all the situation of the COVID-19 that every single country in the world has been experiencing during 2020, Colombia is expected to have a negative growth of 8%, of 8.2%. But despite the situation, or despite this number, Colombia is one of the best performers, actually the top 3 performer in 2020 for the GDP growth. That means that Colombia, despite again of this situation of COVID-19, all the challenge that we are facing in this situation, Colombia is expected to be less affected country, one of the less affected country in Latin America in terms of the macroeconomic situation. But what is expected to 2020? We expect to have a growth between 4% and 4.5%, and this is quite important that this is some specific numbers that relevant entities such as IMF or World Bank has been saying about what Colombia is going to be performing next year in terms of macroeconomic. We also expect to have an inflation rate of 1.9% during 2020. National Bank or Central Bank in Colombia, in charge of the monetary policies in the country, has been always expecting to have an inflation rate between 2 and 4%. That is the average that we expect to have every single year. And last year we had 3.4%. This year we expect to have 1.9%. And in terms of foreign investment, we have more than $4 billion in non-mining investment in our country until between January and September of 2020. That means that 75% of this investment represent the total investment in non-traditional mining sectors in our country. Just give me a second. There we go. How this story begins is in terms of foreign investment in our country, we have to take into account what happened in 2011. In 2011, the 3 major rating agencies took the decision to grant again the investment grade to Colombia. Standard & Poor's, Fitch Ratings, and Moody's, they took the decision to say to the investment world that Colombia is again a country safe to invest. They took the decision regarding 3 situations: how Colombia has been managing all the macroeconomic variables in the country, and how Colombia is going to be deploying all the 4G and 5G investment in terms of infrastructure in our country, how Colombia historically has been always paying his debt. So this is quite important in terms of foreign investment, because Colombia, in the history of the country, the Republican country, we never have experienced a default, and this is quite important. If we see Latin American countries, that every single Latin American country has been experienced, unfortunately, this kind of situation. So gathering all those variables, these 3 major rating agencies took the decision to say that Colombia again is one of the countries to invest in the world. That was in 2011. But what happened between 2011 and now has been a quite beautiful story. Different other organizations such as the OECD, they took the decision last year and this year, to allow Colombia to be part of the full member of one of the best clubs in terms of practices of foreign investment and macroeconomics. And they say that Colombia is one of the most important countries in terms of how we can provide different assets or different opportunities, investment opportunities, with a really good performance of the macroeconomic policies by the government. In Latin America, the unique countries that we have, or we're members of this exclusive club, we are Mexico, Chile, and Colombia. Colombia also has the lowest barriers in terms of foreign investment. Even if we compare in Latin America, we could see countries with high barriers such as Mexico, Brazil, depending on what kind of activities you're going to be performing in the country in Colombia. we have definitely the lowest barriers in terms of how we can open, how you could do business here in Colombia. Also, we are located in the middle of the Americas. That definitely represents a huge opportunity in terms of logistics. As you can see here, we have a strong airport in terms of connectivity in airplane connectivity, not just inside the country, but also in the region of the Americas. But also how we can manage to have a really good connection in terms of shipping in Colombia, taking into account that Colombia has free trade agreements with every single country, most of the countries in Latin America, especially with Canada, United States, all the Mercosur alliance, Mexico. Well, top countries that therefore represents a huge opportunity in how we can do businesses in Colombia. But it's not just location that we offer in Colombia. We also offer a regime, a free trade zone regime that is quite attractive for foreign investors. The first thing that we have to tell about this regime is in Colombia, we have a corporate tax around 32%. And if you're going to be located in the free trade zone, the only tax that you have to pay is 20%. It's quite attractive for different companies that they want to establish operations here. We also, if you are going to be in this regime, you don't have to pay any kind of tariff of VAT, of custom tariffs at the moment that you're going to be doing activities in the country. Actually, if you are in the services or if you are doing goods here in Colombia, the regime is absolutely the same. You can take into account the process of selling your goods or your services, all the free trade agreements that we have in the country with every single country that we have. That is quite important to mention because some of the others Latin American free trade zones, it only allows you to export, and Colombia, we don't have any kind of quotas in that sense. If you want to establish an operation to sell into the country, 100%, you can do it. But if you want to sell abroad or you want to have a mix between 50-50 or whatever you want to do, you can do it in our country. You don't have any kind of restrictions in that sense. But it's not just the free trade zone agreement or the free trade zone regime that we have right now as an incentive. We have also different incentives that you can sum up with a free trade agreement, that is the progressive reduction of the corporate tax. The idea is in 2024 to reach the 30%. The mega investments, for those investments above the $320 million, all those investments are considered mega investments. They have different regime and they have some specific incentives for those activities. We have a holding companies regime to establish the holding in Latin America and Colombia with some specific incentives that we put on the table for every single company. The deductions of the VAT and the real fixed assets. If you want to import a huge machine or a huge assets in Colombia, just to increase the productivity and increase the competitiveness of the country, we are able to return this, deduct actually is the word, this kind of this VAT. And some other specific incentives such as benefits for distribution centers and income tax exemptions. Also, in terms of the technological infrastructure, Colombia has been leader in the past 10 years, all the technology revolution in Latin America. Colombia, 98% of the municipalities, they are right now connected with broadband. Colombia, we have around 1,100 municipalities right now, and 98% of them, they are connected with broadband, but the other 2% remain, they are connected by microwave. Let's say Colombia is 100% connected right now to the world in terms of internet connection. We are the 4th largest IT market in Latin America after Brazil, Mexico, and Argentina. We have 11 submarine cables in operation right now. 2 of them, they have the broadband enough to have all the process in Colombia. We are the third most entrepreneurial country in Latin America, and the penetration of the internet in Colombia is around 66%. This is something quite important, a huge transformation in terms of how we educate people in the usage of the internet and the usage of technology, the devices. How Colombia, another quite important thing to mention is Colombia is the most important country in terms of e-government in Latin America. All the communication between the people and the government mostly has been done by internet, and that is quite important in a country that the highest bet that we are doing is precisely how we can connect the people, not just to the world, but with the government too. In the past 2 years, actually in 2019, Colombia opened Latin America's first center for the 4th Industrial Revolution. This is a center located in Medellin, and they're going to be performing 3 main activities: blockchain, artificial intelligence, and Internet of Things. In the world, they have 5 centers, including the Medellin Center, and having this kind of activities with backup of the World Economic Forum, this is absolutely quite important and represents how important is this activity in Colombia and how represented in Latin America. In terms of foreign investment itself, Colombia is one of the top 10 developing countries receiving foreign investment. As you can see, well, USA they have a huge amount in terms of foreign investment, but in the region we have a strong activity in attraction of foreign investment. And I'm going to stop a little bit in this slide, it's just to tell you the story of foreign investment in our country. This slide doesn't appear in 2010. That was quite important because in 2010 we had around $6 billion in terms of foreign investment. And as I mentioned at the beginning, the 3 major rating agencies took the decision in 2011 to grant again the investment grade, and definitely double, actually more than double, the attraction of foreign investment in just 1 year. And as you can see, well, the performance of these kind of activities and those investments in our country, that was quite important. And most important was that it's not just investment addressed to oil and gas mine activities that everybody knows that they're quite strong in capital, they're quite strong in resources, they're quite strong in terms of the dimension of those projects, but also how is composed that for investment in our country. So before 2011, probably 80%, 90% of the foreign investment was addressed to those traditional sectors. Now, as you can see, that changed, that trend changed, and quite important, the amount of more than 50% during the first 4 years between 2011 and 14, and how between 2015 and actually until now, that represents more than 60-70% of the foreign investment that Colombia is receiving right now in foreign investment. And which countries we have as a top investor in Colombia between 2015 and 19? Obviously, United States is the largest investor in our country, followed by Spain and United Kingdom, definitely and Canada. Those are the top investors right now in our country. But what are the opportunities that we have right now in Colombia for foreign investment? We have different sectors. We have some specific targets in terms of attraction of foreign investment. One of them is technology-based services. As I mentioned before, one of the highest bets that we are doing as a government is how to increase the technological ecosystem in our country, is how we can manage to improve the technology, not just for the side of infrastructure, how we can reach the 5G, how we can do more data centers, but also is how we can create technology, how we can attract different companies that they're going to establish software factories here in Colombia, and how they're going to do this in Colombia. Colombia is one of the most educated countries in Latin America for IT. The number of talent people that they are graduate from this career has been in a really good way. That is compared with other countries. This is a difficult situation. We are experiencing a digital transformation. As I mentioned before, but we are the fourth largest market in IT in Latin America, and growing. This is one of the sectors that definitely you have to take or to bear in mind at the moment to see what are the main activities that you're gonna do here in Colombia. Also, well, some stories that we have right now. Well, as you can see, IBM, one of the top companies, they have more presence here, more than 80 years in Colombia, and they opened the third data center in Colombia. They have a Internet of Things and Internet artificial intelligence center here in Colombia. MasterCard, they are doing some important investments here in Colombia. And Dava from United Kingdom, they have a center, almost 1,000 people between Medellin and Bogota, and definitely represents how Colombia experience and is doing a really good job in terms of foreign investment. From Japan, we got Beverage, that is entity data company, another more than 1,400 people in their centers, also Bogota and Medellin. So definitely this is a huge opportunity for every single company that they see Colombia as a potential for the IT sector. Manufacturing, well, that's quite huge. That is quite important too for us. We are right now doing a strategy as a government to attract investment of efficiency. That represents that those are investment that they're going to use Colombia as a platform for exports, and this is also quite important, but because this is a huge strategy that we are doing right now. The idea is to attract companies that they want to establish in these sectors, in automotive sectors, metalworking, and building materials, cosmetics, packaging, activities that they want to do, not just to supply the local market. That is a market of almost 50 million people in Colombia. It's quite appealing, quite important, but also is how we can manage to use these facilities to attend the Latin American market. But some of the examples that we have right now here in Colombia, well, we have Unilever, we have L'Oreal, we have Abbott, we have Isuzu, companies that they have been established, they got operations in Colombia for a very long time, specifically L'Oreal and Unilever, and how they are using these facilities to export to the region. This is quite important too. Energy, this is one of the sectors that I definitely is going to be going to have the most important flows in terms of foreign investment this year and next year, probably 2022 too, because Colombia is aiming to transform and diversify the energy matrix in Colombia. Even though that Colombia, we have a clean energy, 75% of the energy that we use in Colombia is hydroelectric, and probably 15% is gas and coal. The idea of national government is to transform and to diversify this energy matrix, and the idea for us is start doing this process. In 2018, when this government started, only in Colombia we only had 50 megawatts deployed in the country, and right now, after 2 bids and different activities led by private companies in Colombia, they are transforming this trend, and we are now reaching more than 2,500 megawatts that is established to deploy in 2023. This is a huge transformation, and what we want to do is to continue this trend. We, as a country, we have a commitment with the goals of the sustainability in Colombia, in the world, and the idea is precisely to be part of this trend and to attract investments in terms of sustainability, environmental sustainability in Colombia. Some of the companies that they have already presence in our country, we got Enel from Italy, Trina Solar from China, AES from the United States, all of them with activities in renewable energies, solar and aeolic kind of activities that definitely represents a huge opportunity for foreign investment in our country. And finally, well, for Colombia as an entity and as a government entity, we are more than ready to support you in the process. As I mentioned before at the beginning, we got a presence, so we got office in Madrid, but we also work really hard with our embassy in Portugal. We have a program called Conectados, and this is quite important to work between ProColombia and the embassies, supporting foreign investors that they want to see more, to learn more about Colombia, and take decisions about how Colombia is going to be the next step in Latin America, or the first step in Latin America to establish operations, use Colombia as a platform hub for their activities in Latin America. Thank you very much for this time, and probably give the floor to Maria Alejandra.
Hi, thank you, Gonzalo, for a very wonderful presentation and providing all the information, walking us through all the information about Colombia in a nutshell, and also helping us understand about transitioning investment diplomacy into action. Now I'd like to give the presentation to Maria. Maria, if you could confirm, if you can.
Yes, I'm here. Just 1 second. Can you please confirm that you see my presentation?
Yes, we can.
Oh, perfect. Okay, so good afternoon. First of all, I want to thank you, SBI, for the invitation and for the opportunity to talk about Barranquilla in the state of Atlantico. Also, I want to thank Gonzalo and ProColombia for joining us today. And for everyone in the audience, thank you for your interest in Barranquilla and the Atlantico. So my name is Maria Alejandra Henriquez. I'm the head of investments for Barranquilla, which is the investment promotion agency of the city of Barranquilla and the state of Atlantico. ProBarranquilla is a nonprofit organization that works in partnership with the local government to promote and position our territory as the best destination for doing business within the region. We provide free of charge and confidential services throughout the investment decision-making process, installation, and future expansions. In the last 5 years, ProBarranquilla has supported the establishment and expansion of 289 projects in the Atlantico, which represents $2.4 billion in investments and more than 15,000 formal jobs in the Atlantic. The state of Atlantico is located at the northern coast of the country on the banks of the Magdalena River. Barranquilla is its capital city, and it's best known as the Golden Gate of Colombia due to its importance in the country's early economic development, industrialization, and gateway to modernity. We are pioneers in aviation, navigation, port development, free zones, among others. And in the last 10 to 15 years, Barranquilla has been experimenting a new economic boom in which urban transformation has been key. The state of Atlantico is the 4th most populated city in Colombia, with a population of 2.6 million that represents 5% of the national population. But in terms of the Caribbean region, we represent 23% of the total population of the northern coast of our country. Due to our location, companies in the Atlantico has the potential to reach 10 million consumers in a 200 kilometers radius. In terms of gross domestic product, the state of Atlantico contributes with 4.4% of the national GDP, while the Caribbean region as a whole contributes with 15%. So from 7 states that belong to the Caribbean region, the Atlantico represents 30% of its GDP. In terms of public investment, Barranquilla went from the 4th position in 2008 to be the city in Colombia with the highest public investment per capita in 2016, 17, and 2018. public investments in projects like the transformation and development of the riverbank, the construction of the Puerta de Oro Exhibition Center, the construction of 13 sport venues in 2017 and 2018 had a very positive impact on the city's levels of unemployment, middle class growth, and poverty. From 2003, monetary poverty decreased in almost 50%, passing from 49.5% in 2003 to 21% in 2018. In terms of foreign trade in the Atlántico, I would like to highlight that most of our imports are transformed in Barranquilla and then exported as final goods. Compared to other port cities like Cartagena or Santa Marta, we have the most diversified exports in the Colombian Caribbean region. Just to mention a couple of examples, 72% of Colombia's agrochemicals are manufactured in Barranquilla and then exported through our port. With 5 multinational agrochemical companies in Barranquilla, no wonder why the chemical industry is first on both imports and exports. Approximately 70% of the steel that comes to Colombia is imported through Barranquilla and gets transformed here to attend both domestic and foreign markets. This year, for example, the company Ternium started operations in the Atlantico, and with its full production capacity, this will substitute steel imports in about 26%. On the second part of the presentation, I would like to talk a little bit about our value proposition as the Atlantico. So this slide summarizes why companies choose Barranquilla and the state of Atlantico to set up operations. First, because of its logistic platform. Second, its business infrastructure, its skilled labor, and quality of life. The state of Atlantico is a strategic investment destination in Latin America and the Caribbean because it's a multimodal logistic platform. Today, given the current economic climate in which companies around the world are looking to relocate operations closer to their consumer markets, we believe Barranquilla and the state of Atlantico more generally offers a cost-efficient and well-positioned export platform in Latin America. The Atlantico's strategic location and connectivity allows companies to attend both domestic and foreign markets. Domestic market size is about 50 million consumers, and foreign market size based on Colombia's free trade agreements is about 1,500 million consumers in 60 countries. Barranquilla is a port city with a fluvial port on the Magdalena River that flows into the Caribbean Sea, but it is also located less than 100 kilometers from the maritime ports of Cartagena and Santa Marta, allowing companies to have more port options to choose from. We also have an international airport that's called Ernesto Cortizos that connects Barranquilla with the main cities of the Americas in less than 6 hours. We are 1 hour away from Panama, which is the air hub of the Americas, and less than 2 hours from Miami. By land, we are well connected within the Caribbean region, and we have 4th generation roads that connect us with the rest of our country. In terms of telecommunications, we are the port of entrance of 4 of the total 10 submarine cables that connect Colombia with the worldwide network. Barranquilla has been traditionally an industrial city, reason why it has a great business infrastructure. 4 free trade zones, we have 19 industrial parks, 10 port terminals, and more than 20 business centers and co-working spaces. I know Gonzalo already mentioned the free trade zones, but here in Atlantico we have 4. The free trade zones provide tax and custom incentives and operational benefits. It is recommended for manufacturing companies that are looking to export from Colombia. Some of the benefits include a 20% income tax compared to a 32%, which is the tax in Colombia. You don't pay VAT or custom duties on imports made from the free zone, including those sold from anywhere in the country to the users of these industrial parks. And you also, goods that are produced in the free zone acquire origin made in Colombia for the effects of the free trade agreements. So I mentioned before that the Atlantico has 4 permanent free trade zones. Each of them has like their own value proposition. I don't know if you can see here on the map where here is called Zona Franca de Barranquilla, which is the free zone of Barranquilla. This free zone is pioneered in this regime in Colombia, and they are located next to the port of Barranquilla. So this is the Magdalena River. Here is located the free zone, and next to it is the port. So this proximity with the port of Barranquilla facilitates logistics for foreign trade. Our second free zone is called Sofia, which is here on the Galapa Industrial Corridor. This corridor connects with the port area of Cartagena, which can be very interesting for both companies, using both the Cartagena and Barranquilla ports. This free zone has a mini cluster of companies in the chemical and plastic industries, with companies like Pharmalíquidos, Pineda Laboratory, Retipac, Films, among others. Another free zone in Barranquilla and the Atlántico is called La Cayena. La Cayena is located in the industrial corridor called Juan Mina, which in terms of cost offer the most competitive prices in the Atlántico. It is also located next to the Prosperidad Highway, which is a new road for heavy cargo that connects quickly with the port area of the city. So the Prosperidad highway will connect this way to the northern part of the city and then to the port of Barranquilla. And finally, the fourth free zone is called Palermo, which is located on the other side of the Magdalena River in an industrial and logistic cluster that counts with port services, liquid terminals, industrial park, and free zone area. The city of Barranquilla and some of the municipalities of the state of Atlantico, most of them in the metropolitan area, offer tax exemptions up to 10 years on the industry and commerce tax, as well as property tax. So for companies that establish or relocate operations on specific zones nearby the industrial corridors, this would be very interesting to consider bringing their operations to the Atlantic. So if maybe someone is interested in knowing a little bit more about these incentives, I can send more information later on via email. One of the greatest traits of Barranquilla as an ideal destination is its skilled labor. We are the training center of all the Colombian Caribbean region, where the best universities and schools are located. Additionally, considering that the city has a very diversified economy, it is easy for companies to find highly trained human capital. 54% of industrial jobs in the Colombian Caribbean region are generated in the Atlantico, allowing to develop a specialized human resource for the manufacturing sector. Institutions like the SENA, which is the National Learning Center, is a key ally for the companies, as they are able to develop customized, free-of-charge training courses for their employees. Additionally, Barranquilla is well known for its bilingual population, which in 2010 became very relevant for the BPO and IT industry, as it became a decisive element to establish operations in the Atlantic. In terms of quality of life, Barranquilla is a medium-sized city with competitive living costs for its inhabitants, with highly qualified health, educational, and entertainment services. We are also a very optimistic city. According to Barranquilla Como Vamos, which is the citizen perception survey, the residents of Barranquilla perceive the present and future of the city as optimistic. 76% of our citizens perceive that Barranquilla is on the right track. 89% of them feel satisfied to live in Barranquilla, and 76% are satisfied with their cultural, sports, recreational offer in the city. As I mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, one of the city's master projects is the transformation and development of the riverbank. This project started with the construction of the event and convention center Puerta de Oro, which is a private-public partnership of $85 million. The second phase of this project was an investment of $115 million in a 5-kilometer public river walk, which became the most visited place in Colombia in the last 2 years. Barranquilla and the Atlántico are also a great destination for hosting events. The Puerta de Oro Convention and Event Center was key to place Barranquilla in the map on global events. In 2018, we hosted the Photo Meet from the IDB and the Central American and Caribbean Sport Games. And next year, we will be hosting the General Assembly of the Inter-American Development Bank. So all of this context of Barranquilla and the Atlántico allowed us to position the territory internationally. For the 2019-2020 edition of the American Cities of the Future of the Financial Times, Barranquilla was ranked 7th in the top 10 for its performance in terms of investment promotion and attraction strategy. With this place, the city becomes the second destination of the future of Latin America in the subject and shares the ranking with cities like New York, Chicago, Montreal, Medellin, and Calgary. And finally, on this last part of the presentation, I will go quickly through the sectors that have a great potential to attract investments. The first industry I'm going to talk about is the agrochemical and fertilizers industry. So it is estimated that by 2050, global population will exceed 9 billion people. That is more than 2 billion additional people and an increase of approximately 16%. Also, 3 billion people will be living in cities, meaning that the urban expansion will continue to reduce the number of hectares available for cultivation, increasing the burden on natural resources. Barranquilla and the state of Atlántico have a great advantage because we are the epicenter of the agrochemicals and fertilizers in Colombia. And from here, we attend both domestic markets, but also important markets such as Brazil. The state of Atlántico represents 72% of the national agrochemical exports, and in terms of crop protection, we represent 40% of the pesticides exported by Colombia that are produced here in Barranquilla in the Atlantic. The second industry of interest is food and beverage. According to FAO, Colombia has the potential to become a food pantry in the world. The peace process here in Colombia allowed the return of farmers to their lands and the presence of state institutions in previously abandoned areas. So the Atlantico, or this industry in particular, is very important in Colombia. And in Atlantico is that we have opportunities for investment projects to serve the northern coast of Colombia, but also international markets through exports to the Caribbean, Central America, the United States, Europe. Some of the business models can be food processing plants or distribution centers. The local government is also very interested in promoting agribusiness in the south of the Atlantico, and they are planning to invest in agriculture in the upcoming years. They are also interested in developing a logistic and food processing center for new companies arriving in this industry. So maybe if some of the companies that are listening are interested in this industry, they could consider bringing their business to the Atlantico. Another industry of interest is the cosmetics and cleaning products, which have great export potential from Barranquilla and the Atlantico. Currently, the Atlantico offers the exemptions to industry and commerce tax and property tax to new industrial companies, which combined with the tax and custom incentives of the free zones It makes it very interesting for companies bringing their industrial or their production plants to the Atlantico. We have become also very attractive for our maquila services, manufacturing this type of products and brands such as Natura, Johnson & Johnson, Grupo Familia, La Santé, among others. The plastic subsector is very interesting too, and we have a particularity, and it's the local demand. On the one hand, construction in the Atlantico has been the main driver of GDP growth in the last 10 years, generating a demand for plastic construction materials. On the other hand, the growth of the food and beverage industry and the pharmaceutical and cosmetic sectors are also demanding packaging material and plastic in labels. In addition to this demand, the territory's value proposition includes its proximity to Cartagena, to their petrochemical complex, which is the main supplier of polypropylene for the plastic sector, and its strategic location allows easy access to international markets. Another sector of interest is the renewable energies. So the Colombian Caribbean region has a great potential to develop projects of renewable energies and to lead the diversification of Colombia's energy matrix to the promotion of this industry. The irradiation potential of 6.5 kilowatts is above the rest of the country, making the region very attractive for the development of solar farms and rooftop solar panels for self-supply energy. We also have strong winds and a instable potential of 20,000 megawatts that are an incentive for the development of wind farms in the Atlantico. Currently, we have companies like Oak Creek, Tecnolite, and Diversia developing private and public projects for the generation of renewable energy in the Atlantic. And lastly, another industry for interest is the IT sector. The Atlantico has around 300 companies dedicated to software development, mobile and web applications, digital context, among others. The Atlantico has also the highest rate of entrepreneurship activities in Colombia, from which 50% are technology-based. We also have a cluster for this IT sector that promotes innovation, business development, and industry internationalization. So this is like a quick review of the industries that are that have potential of investment in the Atlantico. So thank you very much for your interest. And here are my contact information if maybe you have questions, or you can just send me an email. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much, Maria, for the interesting presentation and giving an exhaustive knowledge on Barranquilla. Having said that, now we'd like to go on to the questions part of this webinar, and we have received some very interesting questions from the participants. Now, this one is a very specific question. We'll start, and the question goes: are you aware of any free trade agreements between the European Union and Colombia? Maybe Mr. Gonzalo, could you start with this question?
Yes, actually, we have a free trade agreement with between Colombia and the European Union. Actually, it's, if I'm not wrong, Peru, Colombia, and Ecuador. We have a free trade agreement with the European Union, but actually the best conditions we have is between Colombia and European Union, and this is actually was signed almost 6 years ago, if I'm not wrong. But we have a free trade agreement with the European Union.
Oh, thank you very much for the answer. Now we'll move on to another question, and it goes: given the global economic crises and COVID, how has Colombia foreseen recovery process in terms of GDP and growth?
Well, in that sense, Colombia has been put in place, as I mentioned during the presentation, a strategic plan to attack all the process, all the situation that COVID-19 has bring us in terms of macroeconomics. The first thing is to provide different incentives to different industries and different sectors to restart all the economy. One at the beginning was 2-3 years ago, our president, Iván Duque, mentioned that the tourism is going to be the new oil industry in Colombia. Unfortunately, COVID-19 has been reducing these possibilities, unfortunately. But what we want to do is to establish new activities, new incentives to gather all the possibilities to restart the economy in Colombia. Despite the situation of COVID-19, Colombia is one of the countries in Latin America, taking into account the population of 50 million inhabitants, less affected per number of 1,000 inhabitants in the country. If we compare with other countries such as Argentina, Brazil, Mexico, countries that unfortunately they have experienced different situations in that sense. Colombia has been implementing different situations, different activities or plans to control the COVID-19. Actually, last week on Friday, President Iván Duque just launched to every single through the media that Colombia is going to start the first week of February to all the process to vaccination in Colombia. It's going to take around the first stage around 2-3 months. So it's not just how Colombia has been implementing or is promoting new incentives such as tax reductions, tax havens in some specific areas, and but also how Colombia is putting some money for reduce all the effects of unemployment rate. We have been cutting more than 2 million unemployment rate or employment figures in Colombia in the past 3 months. So this is quite important what we are doing, and what we want to do is continue to walking through this path of the recovery in Colombia.
Maria, would you like to jump in on the same question?
Sure. Like, I want to talk a little bit about our experience this year. Like, at the beginning of the pandemic, we were not sure what was going to happen, like with our investment projects. And so we did like a survey, and we found out that most of the projects weren't canceled. Maybe their timelines, of course, moved, but none of them were canceled. So that was very positive. And like this year, we are going to finish with good results in terms of investment. We managed to support approximately like 24 projects in the Atlantico. That is like new companies arriving to the city, or also companies expanding operations. And these 24 projects represent $233 million in investments and 4,000 jobs. So that's pretty good. If we compare like to last year, in terms of investment projects, we have almost half of the projects we had last year. But in terms of like the amount of investment we managed to facilitate around 80% of 2019 results. But for instance, in terms of employment, we almost doubled the number this year, because we had the arrival of 2 large companies in the BPO and IT sector, Teleperformance and Sitel, and they generated around 2,000 jobs in the Atlantico. So that is good news for us. But of course, we will continue to facilitate investments, to look for new leads, and we also are working in a nearshoring strategy, where we want to promote our territory for companies looking to move their production plants closer to their consumer markets. And since we are a port city, we have a very strategic location. So we can be like an export platform for companies. So that's what we're going to do like for next year, and some of the strategies we've been working on in the last months.
Thanks, Maria. And I think this next question is targeted towards your presentation as well. And the question goes, how have the investment policies in the agribusiness sector in the south of Atlantico evolved in the recent years?
Okay, so we have an administration since last year. So the governor's office, one of their interest is to develop the agribusiness in the south of Atlantico. So they're working into projects right now. This first one is they are making available some land in the south of the Atlantico, so they can bring companies that can bet on this agribusiness. They're facilitating all forgot the word. Okay, so they are trying to attract companies to invest in the south of Atlantico, and they are trying also to provide all the necessary means to make them invest in Barranquilla and in this sector. And they are in their plans, they are gonna build a logistic and transformation industrial park. And what we are seeing is that they want to make or to provide also incentives for companies that establish operations in this area. Right now, it's a project, so it's not completely done, and hopefully in the next year we get like the incentives for the agribusiness in the south of Atlantico, but it's definitely a sector of interest of the local government.
Thank you once again, Maria. The next question is pretty general, and maybe both of you could chip in. What are the best practices for investment in Colombia? Maybe Gonzalo, could you go ahead with this one?
The best practices, well, this is a wide question, but well, right now is, as I mentioned before, we have different sectors that we want to promote, and one of the main sectors that we are targeting next year is definitely IT and agribusiness with technology. Other one is energy, infrastructure, private equity funds, because those sectors definitely going to increase the competitiveness of the country, and that's definitely the best way to start targeting these kind of activities. The other one, as I mentioned also during the presentation, is the strategy of the nearshoring that we are performing right now. This is something that national government is backing up all the investors that they're taking the decision to invest in our country, and counting with this support of the national government is quite important at the moment to take the decision of any single country. So Colombia has been demonstrating, showing every single investor how it's committed in terms of how we are committed with the foreign investment in our country. And the best way is supported by ProColombia. We are the guide for all investors in conjunction with different regional investment agencies such as ProBarranquilla. We have been working with them for several years, doing strategic activities to visit them, some agendas that we do in Europe before COVID-19. So supported by ProColombia and the local authorities and the local agencies such as ProBarranquilla is the key factor to have a smooth process to invest in our country.
Yeah,
thank you. Sorry, Maria, please go ahead.
Oh, yeah, so I will have to agree with Gonzalo. I think one of the best practices is the relation that has like the regional IPAs with the national promotion agency, which is ProColombia. So we have like a very fluid communication with ProColombia. We make a team together to promote our country. We have the same language, we have the same strategies. We work all like, I don't know how many IPAs are in Colombia, maybe 20 or so, but we are all very connected, and like we have like the same vision of Colombia to bring in investments. And I think that's a very strong, I would say, advantage of Colombia, because we as a team work together to facilitate investments in our country. Even though we don't belong to ProColombia, it's almost like we were, because we do everything together, and that is a very strong formula. And for instance, in the Atlantico, also we have a very strong participation of the public sector. Barranquilla, like ProBarranquilla, works hand in hand with the local government also to promote the Atlantico, and the economic development secretaries from the local government are very involved in the investment opportunities we identify. So they are very available to talk with the companies that are trying to get to Barranquilla, or there are companies that are trying to understand a little bit about the country, but also about our territory, the Atlantico. And I think that's also a very good practice, because working with the public sector also sends a good message to the investors, right? So I would highlight those 2 points.
Thank you, Maria. So for the best interest of time, we'll take one more question. And also this question is targeted towards both of your presentation. And it reads, could you please provide more information on protection policies to foreign investors in Colombia?
Well, Colombia has been marked as different entities such as World Bank in the report of the Doing Business as one of the most important countries in the world in terms of protection of foreign investments. And we are leading this item in Latin America. We are the first country in terms of investment protection, foreign investment protection in Latin America. So this is quite important. This is something that Colombia has been remarked among the Latin American countries. And how we do it is that we treat foreign investors the same way as we treat Colombian companies. So they have the same rights, but they have the same process. And what we want to do is to put in the same system as every single other company, and provide the best activities as possible, or the best condition as possible to perform their activities in Latin America. That definitely basically is what we do as a country. We treat very fair and very well for investors. We don't do any kind of expropriation or activities that they are against the common activities of for investment or economic activities in Latin America, such as probably in other countries in the region. So in terms of investment protection, we are quite strong. We invite you to double check the Doing Business report and to see a little bit more about this considerations.
Thank you, Gonzalo. Maria, do you have any additional inputs for the same question?
No.
Okay. So this brings us to the end of our webinar on doing business successfully in Colombia. Once again, I'd like to thank both of our very talented speakers for providing their inputs and insights. And we'd also strongly suggest for our participants to follow Cuban on the social media platforms, mainly Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn. and we'll be conducting more webinars on similar fields, and we'll be providing more information on doing business and investments in various regions and countries. Once again, thank you everyone for this webinar session. Now also, we would appreciate if you could fill the survey that will be at the end of this webinar. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.